Hey guys, tonight we're sailing back to a time of roaring fjords, thick wool cloaks, and legal proceedings that involved hallucinogenic mushrooms. That's right, you're standing in a Viking court, surrounded by axes, suspicious glances, and at least one guy with a raven on his shoulder. The air smells like pine needles, smoke, and faint terror. And yes, you probably won't survive this unless you have an incredibly honest face or an iron stomach. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Always love seeing the bedtime roll call. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The wind cuts across your cheeks like sharp cloth. 8. You pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders, but it doesn't help much. The clouds are rolling low, tonight's low and weighty like thick batter poured across a cold sky. You've been summoned to the Viking Legal Assembly, okay? And your gut tells you this won't be a quick matter of paying a goat fine or selling a land border. This is serious. Around you, okay? People shuffle through the damp grass, boots squeaking against mud. The scent of wet leather and dried fish clings to everything. A horse tied nearby lets out a bored huff, and someone's dog is chewing on what might once have been a legal document. But your eyes are fixed on the stone. Circle ahead, the sacred space where disputes are aired, oaths are sworn, and occasionally, things get very, very weird. A man 2 steps to your left mutters something about mushrooms. Mushrooms. You're not here for dinner. You're here because someone, probably Thorvald, the flax merchant with a personal vendetta, accused you of skimming weight off your barley. You were supposed to be paid in iron, not rumors and fungus. But here you are. The thing isn't like a modern courtroom. It's no judges, gavel, or jury box. Instead, there's a ring of weather-worn stones, a circle of piers, and an old wooden platform where elders, chieftains, and seeresses take turns whispering the laws of old. The whole place feels halfway between a parliament and a seance. A hush falls. The law speaker, a tall man with a beard that could house a family of finches, lifts a hand. His voice is like gravel being poured into a wooden bowl. We shall hear the matter of Bjorn's barley, he says. That's you, Bjornor, at least the name you're using for this particular story. And whether he did deceive the scales. Accusation stings. It's not because it's false. You might have adjusted the weights a little bit, because it's now in the open. And open things have a way of drawing strange attention, especially here, especially now. From the crowd, a woman steps forward. She wears layered robes stitched with bone, and her hair is braided with feathers and odd silver trinkets. Around her neck hangs a pouch that sways like something alive. You've heard of her? Everyone has. She's a Vavasiris, a practitioner of seer, the old magic that mingles prophecy, trance, and maybe some herbal cocktails no one talks about in polite company. She's not here to defend or accuse. She's here to observe the truth, and she brought her pouch. You feel the ground shift slightly beneath your boots. Historians still argue whether the Vikings truly used hallucinogenic mushrooms in their court rituals. Some believe it was metaphor visions, brought by the gods, not the fungi. Others, more inclined to peer into ancient herbal grimoires, insist that certain truth-seeking rites did involve altered states. Not for everyone, just the chosen few, witnesses, or the Vava herself, drawn into trance to see honesty tonight. It might be both. The pouch is opened. A Vova pulls free a small bundle wrapped in sealskin, and inside, you glimpse something soft, red-speckled, and vaguely threatening. Amanita muscaria. Maybe, though you wouldn't know its Latin name. To you, it's just truth cap, but a mushroom that makes old men scream at trees. No one eats it without reason. And yet, here, among the gusts of sea air and low murmurs of neighbors, It might be the difference between exile and home. A boy from the next village whispers. If it's a lying case, they chew the caps. His friend elbows him. No, it's only for memory trials or visions or ... Look, just hush. You hush. Because now the law speaker is nodding toward the woman and the pouch. Heh. And the ring of elders who sit cross-legged on wool mats that have definitely seen better centuries. One of them, 8 old and half asleep, mutters, "Bring the mushrooms if there's no clarity." Some no clarity then? Someone steps forward to witness. The flax merchant's cousin, of course. He's been known to misplace facts when coin is involved. But tonight, his honesty will be tested by fungus. He kneels. Vivalva passes him the smallest piece. Not too much can cause, well, seizures, or worse, but just enough to let visions in. He chews, grimaces, and closes his eyes. You watch. This isn't justice as you imagined it. It's not about evidence or cross-examinations. It's about vision, about altered perception, about whether the spirits or your stomach believe what you say. Around the circle, others sit quietly. You hear a woman adjusting her cloak. Man sneezes into the crook of his arm. The dog is now gnawing on someone's boot, and the witness, his face contorts slowly. He starts to mutter something about scales, barley, and a fish that whispered secrets to him in the river. His eyes are glassy. He sways gently like a birch in wind. Truth comes in riddles, says the Valva. You want to laugh? You really do, but it catches in your throat, 'cause if he's wrong, or delirious, or both, it might mean another round, another mushroom, maybe even your own. The elders nod. They seem satisfied or confused. It's hard to tell, honestly, and just like that, the pouch is closed again. The air thickens after the mushroom ritual. You stand there, trying not to blink too loudly, as the elders exchange slow glances. One scratches his beard. Another mutters about needing to speak to the gods or at least get something warm to drink. Around you, people begin to murmur. The thing, this Viking assembly of truth and reckoning, is a strange place even on a normal day. And today, there are mushrooms involved. Today is anything but normal. You scan the crowd. Faces stare at Yuzum with sympathy. Some with thinly veiled amusement, and a few with that very particular Viking expression that says, "Hope you get banished, but not so far that I can't gossip about you later." The thing is more than just a quartet, a festival, a parliament, a therapy session, and a really tense family reunion all in one. People bring their disputes, sure, but they also bring bread, gossip, sheep, and sometimes, if things get exciting, a bit of blood. You're not here for blood. Hopefully, you're here for justice. Or, more accurately, to not get dramatically declared an outlaw and sent to live in a mossy cave until someone forgets you ever sold barley. But first, let's back up, 'cause if you're going to survive this, need to understand the thing. The thing is the Viking version of court and Congress rolled into one. It happens at regular intervals, some local, some regional, and some big enough to make you wish you'd packed better socks. People travel for days to attend. It's where laws are recited from memory by the law speaker. Yep, no books. It's just one guy with a terrifying memory, and where disputes are heard by a jury of your sort of peers, some of whom may or may not still hold a grudge from that time your goat wandered into their oat field. There's no judge banging a gavel, no powdered wigs, just the law speaker, the elders. It's in a kind of open-air setup where a rainstorm can delay justice, or at least make everyone too damp to care. The law speaker doesn't just know the law, he is the law. He chants it aloud at each assembly, reciting the rules and clauses from memory. And honestly, if anyone ever deserved a cup of mead and a back rub, it's that guy. Some historians argue that the thing was surprisingly democratic for its time. Others counter that it depended entirely on your social class, your connections, okay, and how well you could sway a room full of bored farmers with stories about barley weights. Still, there's no denying it had structure, and that structure included some, let's say, unique methods for finding the truth. Which brings us back to mushrooms. You shuffle your boots slightly, feeling the damp ground squish beneath you. The witness is still seated, his eyes closed now, head tilted at an odd angle. He might be reliving childhood, or communing with a squirrel deity. Hard to tell. Does he always hum when he lies? You ask the law speaker softly. He doesn't laugh, but someone else does. There's tension in the air now, not the angry kind, the kind that says we're all waiting for something bizarre to happen. That's the thing's specialty. One moment, you're settling a boundary dispute over a stream. The next, someone's shirt catches fire during a divine judgment ritual. You glance around the stone circle. Some of the people gathered here have real stakes in your case. Others, they're just here for the entertainment. The thing is a social event as much as a legal one. It's where alliances are forged, rivalries reignited, and someone always ends up drunk under a cart before sunset. Viking courts weren't all formal mushroom-induced testimonies, of course. Many disputes were settled through oaths, monetary compensation, a worgold, literally, man price, a complex system that allowed you to pay your way out of conflict, assuming everyone agreed on the value of your offense. Break someone's arm, that's a few silver coins. Insult their honor, slightly more. Steal their goat and lie about it. Well, now we're talking mushrooms, the truth tests. It's like the one happening before your eyes were reserved for murkier cases. 4 stories too tangled for ordinary judgment. And yes, sometimes they involved vision-seeking rituals. Not always with mushrooms, but often with something herbal. Historians still argue whether these rituals were symbolic or believed to have real divine backing. Some sagas tell of truth-seeking ceremonies guided by Odin himself, who, let's not forget, once hung from a tree for 9 days just to gain wisdom. Others describe less magical proceedings, heated debates, slap fights, okay, and plenty of passive-aggressive poetry. You once heard of a trial where 2 men dueled in verse until one fainted from the strain of rhyming. It was considered binding, but today isn't about poetry. Today is about fungus. And the line between vision and truth is growing blurrier by the second. The Vava murmurs something under her breath. She's not judging, just interpreting. She leans toward the witness, listens to his stream of dream talk, and then nods once, solemnly. He believes the barley was short-weighted, she says, because he saw it turn to pebbles in a basket of bones, right? A few elders grunt in. What might be agreement or digestion? The law speaker strokes his beard so slowly it might be a ritual in itself. And you stand there, trying not to blink again, wondering how many other court cases have been decided by what a mushroom vision made someone feel about bones. The crowd is whispering again. Psst, the man beside you broad shoulders. A belt made of what? Looks like reindeer antlers leans over. You might want to call your own seer, says. You don't have one, but you do have a cousin who once tried to become a Vava, for realizing he was allergic to wool and responsibility. Maybe it's time to send word, because in this court, truth isn't just what's provable, it's what's seen in visions, in dreams, or through the giddy haze of a carefully nibbled cap. You wake the next morning, still feeling the pull of yesterday's mushroom-fueled court session. Though you slept indoors, well, the hut, slightly more watertight than your neighbor's, you swear you dreamed in colors that don't exist. The fjord was a ribbon of singing light. Your barley danced a jig. And the law speaker was crying into a bowl of fish. Maybe it's just nerves. Maybe it's something in the wind. Or maybe Truth has a way of sticking to you out here, long after the testimony ends. Today, you're called back to the thing. The witness has come down, they say, though his eyes still twitch like he's watching shadows wrestle. You hope someone gave him porridge, but all eyes are now on the vulva. She returns to the center of the stone circle. Her feet bare this time, in her pouch. That pouch cuts cradled like a sleeping animal. No ceremony today, no fanfare, just that quiet rustle of breathless anticipation as she reaches inside again. This time, the mushrooms aren't for the witness, they're for you. You stare, blink, try to smile, fail. No need, you say, chuckling weakly. I was there. I know what I sold. The elders murmured. The law speaker clears his throat. The court has not reached consensus. We seek clarity. Hey, if you consent, the series will guide your vision. You don't want to, truly, you don't. You've heard stories of men who laughed themselves hoarse, seeing fish on horseback, of women who claimed the gods braided their hair in the night only, to wake with seaweed in their teeth, and worse of people who were sure they were innocent, till the mushrooms told them otherwise. Historians still argue whether the participants genuinely believed the visions revealed truth, or whether the whole thing was a culturally accepted excuse to let someone very high make the final call. But none of that matters now. You nod. The vulva doesn't smile. She just hands you a tiny piece, smaller than a walnut, but twice as intimidating. It smells earthy and slightly metallic, like wet bark or old coins. You place it on your tongue. It's chewy. It's like bad jerky, with a grudge. Then the waiting begins. You sit. The air is cool, but growing heavier. Not warmer, exactly, just dense, like the sky's leaning a little closer to hear what you'll say next. The vulva begins to hum, a slow, low sound that seems to vibrate directly behind your eyes. You don't know what it means, but you're pretty sure it's traditional land meant to help you. Open. Around you, the faces blur slightly. The trees behind the crowd wave hello. A goat winks at you. It begins. You're not hallucinating wildly, at least not yet. Okay. But the world now has edges, soft ones, curling and pulsing like candle flames. Okay. You can feel your memories breathing. You can see your past laid out like cloth on a bench. And there's the barley dot. You see it golden, full, honest. You weighed it fairly, you're sure. But wait, you see, Thorvald. He's standing over your weights, fiddling. You try to shout, but your voice is made of moss. This could help you, or absolutely not. Suddenly, you're in your childhood home. Your grandmother is stirring stew. But the stew is filled with coins, and she's laughing. You always wanted to be rich, she says. What does that mean? It's your subconscious accusing you of being greedy. Or was she always weird? You snap back. The vision is slippery, but it's fading. The mushroom is wearing off, for maybe it's burrowing deeper. The elders are watching. The vulva leans in. What did you see? You don't know what to say. You saw truth, but you also saw a crow wearing spectacles, citing your tax records. Truth is weird. You speak carefully, slowly. I saw the barley, and I saw Thorvald touching the weights. There's a murmur through the crowd. The law speaker's brows lift, accusing the accuser. Not accusing, you reply, just reporting what the gods showed me. It's a clever answer, ambiguous, mysterious, possibly correct. The series hums again, nods once, and says, he speaks with vision. A moment passes, then another dot. An elder sneezes. Dramatically dot. Then, at last, let this be weighed by omen, the law speaker says, and by witness. The court shall deliberate. Dead. Surprisingly, it's dead. You sit there, still buzzing slightly. I wonder if the mushrooms worked or if you just passed the Viking equivalent of a lie detector with flair. Now, to be fair, not every Viking Trial used mushrooms. Most were boring, oath-based. A lot of I swear upon my ancestors, and may Thor strike me down if I lie. Which, let's be honest, is risky during thunderstorm season. But in truly sticky cases, when evidence was thin and stories slippery, that's when the pouch came out. Some sagas mention it obliquely. A vision taken before judgment. A trance of memory. Scholars have squinted at those lines for decades. Were they poetic metaphors for actual mind-bending practices? We may never know for sure. What we do know is that Vikings, despite their image of axe-swinging chaos, were obsessed with law. Their oral legal traditions was so detailed that law speakers trained for years to memorize everything. They had rules for property lines, marriage, theft, even sheep disputes, and they hated uncertainty. So when facts failed and oaths weren't enough, they turned to vision. And sometimes vision came in the form of a mushroom with a red cap and spots like moonlight. You lie back, your head heavy. A raven circles above, and you wait to learn whether your dream will be accepted as truth, or if you're about to be exiled to the most boring peninsula in Iceland. You sit in the quiet, listening to the ocean in the distance. The thing has recessed temporarily. The elders off debating under a birch tree, while the rest of the crowd migrates toward the mead tent. Someone's playing a bone flute. Someone else is chasing a runaway sheep. But you're still trying to figure out whether what you saw in your mushroom trance was real, or just an elaborate hallucination starring a barley conspiracy and your grandmother. Still, the Vova has packed away her pouch. It swings gently from her belt as she walks the perimeter of the circle, whispering to someone who's selling elk jerky. You wonder what it's like to have that kind of power, to carry a satchel full of magical mushrooms and decide whose vision counts as truth. It's like being both therapist and judge, with a dash of psychedelic flair. What you've just experienced is part of an older, deeper layer of Viking spirituality, Seer. The magic of vision, trance, and prophecy. Not all Vikings approved of it. In fact, Seer was often seen as deeply mysterious, feminine, and potentially dangerous, which, of course, made it irresistible. The women who practiced Seer Vivlur, or seeresses, held a strange, liminal position in society, revered for their power, but also feared. After all, they were said to speak to the gods, to peer into fate, and, occasionally, to curse your entire family tree with one badly pronounced chant. Sea rituals often involved rhythmic drumming, chanting, and the use of herbs and plants to induce altered states. Mushrooms, quite possibly, fly agaric, known today as Amanita muscaria, with its bright red cap and white spots, grows wild across northern Europe. It's been linked to shamanic practices in Siberia and beyond. Could the Vikings have used it, too? Historians still debate it. Some claim references to mushroom-induced trances are buried in the sagas, hidden behind poetic language. Let's argue. There's no direct evidence, no mushroom icons carved into runestones. There's no recipes scribbled on birch bark saying add to caps, then accuse neighbor. But you don't need academic proof. You had the mushroom. You saw the visions, or at least, you think you did. Back at the thing, someone yells about a missing ox. You take this opportunity to breathe. Just breathe. In through the nose, out through the nose. Because frankly, your mouth tastes like moss and panic. You chew on a pine twig. Not for flavor, just something to do with your hands. Another man is brought forward. His name is Eirik, and he's in trouble for stealing apples, which is strange, because it's not apple season. Eirik, however, refuses the mushroom. He swears his innocence by oath, placing his hand on a carved idol of Thor. No visions, no trances, it's just a bold statement, loud and proud. The elders accepted. You blink. Wait, you mutter. That was allowed. A woman nearby shrugs. Mushrooms are for the unsure. Oaths are for the confident. or the very good liars. It's hard to argue with that logic. The thing is, the Viking world wasn't just about brute strength and sharp swords. It was also deeply spiritual, layered with belief in omens, dreams, signs from the gods. If a bird landed the wrong way, someone would move out of their house. If your neighbor's fire burned blue, they'd probably blame elves. And if someone couldn't agree on whether you sold fair barley, well, then a vision might sort it out. But there was a system to it. Seer wasn't random. It followed rules, sometimes elaborate ones, involving circles of stones, ritual songs, even specific days of the week. You couldn't just eat a mushroom and start accusing your cousin of stealing your sled. That's where the vulva came in. She didn't just hand out fungus like it was mead at a festival. She curated the moment, decided when the vision would be right. She was trained in her way. She knew what herbs to combine, how long to hum, which direction to face, and when to interpret a dream as a divine judgment versus a case of bad digestion. You glance at her again. She's crouching by a fire now, speaking softly to a man with weathered skin and a braided beard. He's nodding as she talks, probably receiving some kind of omen about his goats. You begin to realize that her role isn't just mystically social. The vulva mediates not just between the seen and unseen, but between people. She helps the court work through the intangible, the emotional, the subjective. The places where law fails, but truth still lingers. And what better tool for navigating the foggy, murky waters of perception than a mind-bending mushroom? Still, the risks were real. Amanita muscaria isn't a casual snack. If prepared wrong, or consumed in too large a dose, it can cause nausea, twitching, delirium, and, in extreme cases, death. Which is why the Vavilor were careful. Rituals required fasting beforehand. Sometimes charcoal mixtures were administered after to cool the fire of the spirit. You didn't get any of that. Of course, they just handed you a cap and said, "Good luck." You scratch your head. You think you're fine now? Mostly. A boy walks past, singing a song about a bear that lost its pants. You blink again? Yeah, mostly still. You can't help wondering, what did the vulva see when she looked at you during COD? Your trance. Did she see clarity, or just a guy sweating in rhythm with the wind? The thing is called back to order. The law speaker raises his hand. Everyone quiets. Two truths, scarce, spoken through vision. One by the witness, one by the accused. You hold your breath. Both saw the barley. He continues. Both saw deceit, but from different hands. You can hear a pin drop, rather, a fish scale. Someone drops one in shock. This court will now consult the vulva. Everyone turns. She stands, slowly, the firelight catching in her silver trinkets. "I saw the weight," she says, "and I saw it shift, but not from his hand." She points to you, from another. Murmurs erupt. She steps forward and quietly says something to the law speaker. You can't hear it, but you catch a phrase. The mushroom does not lie. The spirit stirs clean. You have no idea what that means, but it sounds promising. You are still in the stone circle when the murmuring begins to settle, like dust after a storm. The law speaker looks older today, as though the vision talk has added another ring to his internal tree. He raises a hand for silence, and you try very hard not to look like someone who just ate a mushroom and remembered that his grandmother once insulted a sea god. The verdict is not yet given. In the Viking world, truth is not a single thread. It's a woven cord, frayed at the ends, and occasionally tangled by goats. So, before they make a ruling, the elders ask for one final rite. They want the witness, the flax merchant's cousin, to return. And this time, he won't be chewing mushrooms. He'll be entering a trance with the help of chanting. You blink. At this, that's allowed. Apparently, yes, seer magic wasn't limited to fungi. Vikings had a whole apothecary of curious plants and sensory tricks up their sleeves. And when mushrooms weren't practical lore, someone had a particularly sensitive stomach, they turned to trance-drumming, chanting, swirling cloaks, rhythmic humming, until your brain gave up and started painting pictures in the air. The witness kneels again, visibly nervous this time. The vulva begins her chant, low and pulsing. Less a song and more vibration you can feel in your spine. The others join in, slowly, forming a circle around him. The effect is hypnotic-like. You're all on the deck of a ship, rocking gently, wind pressing against your ears. You find yourself swaying, not much, just a little, like a tree politely caught in a storm, somewhere between the third repetition of the chant and the fourth. The witness slumps forward slightly. His eyes are closed. His lips twitched out then, with a shudder. He speaks. He was not alone. Now that's intriguing. The law speaker leans in. He took the barley, the witness murmurs. But someone else altered the weight. There were ... two. The crowd murmurs again, and you're starting to feel like you've wandered into a Norse detective story with chanting, occasions, and the occasional goat soundtrack. The vulva stops the humming with a single, sharp breath. The trance ends. The man blinks, confused. What did I say? He asks. You said there were two. An elder replies. He nods slowly. Then, that's what I saw. You're still recovering from the mental image of two shadowy figures sabotaging your barley baskets. It's like a pair of rogue squirrels with a vendetta. This changes everything and nothing, because now the story is twice as tangled. Historians still argue whether these trances were truly revelatory or simply dramatic performances with deep social weight. Some point to the structure of Viking legal customs house storytelling was central. How reputation and perception often mattered more than hard evidence. Others suggest that the rituals themselves created psychological space for honesty like hypnotism, only colder and with more chanting. But however you slice it, the result is the same. You're caught in a tangle of visions, and you're starting to realize you might not be the only one who lied. You glance at Thorvald. He stands stiffly, arms crossed. He hasn't spoken once during the entire hearing. He's always been a man who prefers others to do his accusing for him. Probably pays them in fish out now, though he's watching the crowd too closely, listening a little too hard. You speak before. You can stop yourself. I think we should ask him, you say, loudly. Everyone turns. You point. Thorvald, would you submit to a truth test? There's a beat of silence, so thick you could ferment it. Thorvald scoffs. I'm not the accused. No, you say, trying not to sound smug, but if you're truthful, the mushroom will agree. The crowd loves this. You see the spark in their eyes. Vikings were many things, but above all, they appreciated a good turn of drama. The law speaker hesitates. This isn't standard, okay? But it is allowed, sort of. Will you submit? He asks Thorvald. The flax merchant shifts his weight. I will not be made a fool, he growls. The vulva speaks softly. Those who fear the vision often fear their own truth. Oof. Classic vulva burn. People definitely love that. Thorvald grits his teeth. Fine. You can hardly believe it. The pouch appears again. The red-capped mushroom is smaller this time. Barely a pinch. Just enough to loosen the tongue. He chews it like it's the toughest route he's ever tasted. Minutes pass. The chanting resumes. This time, it's quieter. Not a storm. A breeze. Thorvald closes his eyes, then opens them. He laughs and says, It was not me. It was my son. The silence is instant. Someone gasps. You blink. Wait, his son? You didn't even know he had a son old enough to lift a barley basket. But the words are out now, and they cannot be taken back. The vulva nods slowly. The mushroom stirred the hidden truth. You almost feel bad, almost because now, the truth isn't just twisted, it's generational. This is the Viking court at its finest. not with hard evidence, but with a poetic mess of vision, guilt, memory, and magic fungi. And somehow, you're still standing. You look at the law speaker. He raises his hand. Judgment shall be delayed until the elders speak. Which, in Viking terms, means we need a nap before we deal with this. You wake before dawn to the sound of waves crashing harder than usual, the tide slapping the fjord like it's in a bad mood. Your back is sore from sleeping on a straw mat, and there's a chicken staring at you. Classic village hospitality. The elders have called another assembly. This time, it's not a truth test. It's a reckoning. But before anything is decided, they want to revisit the history of these so-called mushroom verdicts. You're led, groggy and squinting, to a hall carved from timber, its beams so darkened by smoke they look like petrified antlers. At its center is a man who introduces himself simply. I'm Catil. I keep the memory of the old ways. A human archive. Then, possibly with mushrooms in his pockets, he beckons you to sit. You've seen one way, he begins. But you must understand where this began. The firelight flickers, and for a moment, he seems 1,000 years older. Then his face suggests. You ever wonder, he says, why the gods spoke through madness? You think of Odinhagen from Yggdrasil for 9 nights, bleeding wisdom from a spear wound. It's not exactly a poster for mental wellness. Catil grins. Exactly. The Vikings believed truth wasn't just logically was revealed. Truth came through suffering, through altered states. Caden, their wisest god, deliberately sought hallucination. The mushrooms. They were a shortcut to divine frenzy. And so, long before your barley was ever stolen, long before Thorvald's son was implicated mid-trance, these rituals were baked into the culture. A truth test wasn't courtroom drama, was communion with a higher clarity. Historians still argue whether these rituals were widespread or localized. Was this a pan-Norse practice, or just the obsession of a few coastal settlements with too much reindeer dung and not enough grain? What's certain, by the 9th century, there were already tales of visionary trials. Catil gestures to an old ox-hide scroll. This recounts the case of Ivor Stoney, he says, and the name alone earns a few chuckles. Apparently, Ivor was accused of murdering a rival with an axe carved from whale jawbone. No one saw him do it, but the rival's ghost reportedly appeared to a witness during a mushroom trance, weeping blood and demanding justice. The ghost had specifics. The whalebone had a crack shaped like a crescent moon. Ivor's axe matched exactly guilty. Now, was this courtroom procedure, or the Viking version of campfire gossip, elevated to legal ruling? No one's entirely sure, but the logic was consistent. A truth revealed under the sacred. Mushroom's influence could carry the same weight as a blood oath. You shift uncomfortably, because you know what this means. Thorvald's vision, his sudden confession about his son, might be binding, even if the son hasn't spoken. Even if he denies it, Cato reads your thoughts. The vision speaks what the soul hides, he says, whether or not the lips agree. You want to object, to mention how sometimes souls are just really bad with details. Maybe Thorvald had indigestion. Maybe he hallucinated his son stealing barley while riding a flaming elk. But then again, did see the Viviva's eyes. She wasn't surprised. Catil continues. In some communities, the accused would be taken to a sacred spring after the mushroom trance to cleanse themselves and confess, if need be. You can see why. A bit of cold water probably shook the mushroom-induced clarity into full resolution. Or, more likely, made them regret all of their life choices simultaneously. One ritual, Catil explains, involved tying carved runes to a string of bones, dipping them into mead, and letting the mushroom-dosed person draw a piece at random. Whatever symbol emerged was considered a sign. Guilt, innocence, oathbreaker, slayer. It all sounds like a chaotic, Viking magic 8-ball. And yet, it worked, or seemed to, because in a society where truth was slippery and reputation was everything, these rituals gave people something to believe in, a method, a pattern in the chaos, a God's breath beneath the hallucinations. You think we're making it up? Catil asks suddenly, eyes sharp. You shake your head quickly. No, not at all. He chuckles. Good, because it works best when you don't doubt. He leans forward, lowers his voice. They say some mushrooms grow only where blood has been spilled. The rage caps, the blood bells, they feed on memory, grow from pain. So when you chew one, you're not just seeing visions. You're tasting the echo of violence. Well, that explains a lot. You suddenly wonder where yesterday's mushrooms were harvested. Catil claps his hands and the fire flares. Time to go. You leave the hall with a sense of weight pressing into your chest. Not fear, not guilt, just ... perspective. You're a grain thief, yes, but you're also a player in a drama much older than your barley, and you're beginning to see that this isn't just about theft. It's about a village reckoning with itself. The elders emerge not long after, voices grim. A vote will be held, and not just to decide guilt. They want to determine whether truth tests like mushrooms and trance confessionals will remain part of law going forward. Your stomach drops, because if they vote yes, think Thorvald's son may face punishment based on something his father saw while riding the Reindeer Express through Mushroom Dashland. But if they vote no, then all of this sure confession, the Vivivus trance, vision, none of it counts. You ask someone nearby when the vote will happen. They glance at the sun. Soon as the moon rises. Perfect. Just enough time to panic, second guess your life, and consider hiding under a canoe, because either way, this doesn't end cleanly. Not in the Viking world, not when mushrooms whisper. As the sun sinks low, painting the sky in bruised purples and soft golds, the thing reconvenes. The air feels heavier now, weighted by expectation and perhaps a hint of pine smoke and spilled mead. People shuffle forward, pulling cloaks tighter against the evening chill. The firelight flickers, casting dancing shadows across the faces of those gathered. The law speaker stands in the center again, his beard catching the last rays of daylight. His voice, always calm but firm, cuts through the murmurs. The time has come to decide, he says. Shall the court continue to accept visions revealed by the sacred mushroom and trance as lawful evidence? A silence settles. Even the wind seems to hold its breath. You glance at the Vava. She watches with steady, knowing eyes. No surprise, there she's been waiting for this moment all along. The first to speak is an elder, known as Sigurd the Steadfast. His voice rumbles like distant thunder. I have seen the truth revealed in visions. The mushroom has spoken justice in my village many a time. To reject this would be to reject the gods themselves. A few nod, and some whisper assent. But not all. Bjorn, the quiet, steps forward, his tone cautious. Truth is not always what the eye perceives in a haze. Relying on visions risks condemning the innocent by fancy or fear. We must be careful lest we let the spirits trick us. The debate unfolds slowly, each argument layered with respect and concern. This isn't a shouting match. It's a careful weighing of tradition, justice, and the unknown. You feel a strange calm settling over you. Maybe it's the cool evening, or maybe it's that, despite the uncertainty, everyone here is bound by the same desire. Fairness. At one point, a farmer recalls a case where a man confessed under mushroom trance to a crime he later denied, claiming the vision was a trick of the mind. Historians still argue whether such confessions were coerced or genuine. She adds softly, but the court's challenge is the same: how to balance belief with caution. A soft laugh ripples through the crowd. someone else recounts a tale from a distant fjord, where a vulva used a trance to reveal a hidden treasure, ending a decade-long feud over stolen silver. The contrast between stories is striking. The sacred mushroom is both revered and feared. It's a gift and a gamble. The law speaker calls for quiet again. He offers a compromise. Let us continue to use visions as evidence, but only when supported by other witnesses or oaths. The mushroom shall not be the sole arbiter of truth. Murmurs rise, some pleased, some disappointed. You breathe out slowly. This seems fair. A balance between the mystical and the practical. Thorvald's son, you realize, may face consequences, but now with some safeguards. Justice tempered by reason. The vulva nods approvingly. As the vote is taken, the community embraces this new decree. The old ways adapt, blending ancient vision with grounded law. You feel oddly comforted by this, not because the outcome favors you, but because even in a world ruled by gods and mushrooms, there is space for human judgment. The thing disperses gradually, the fire burning low. You find a quiet spot and sit, watching stars ignite one by one. Tonight, you're not just a man accused, you're a witness to a tradition wrestling with itself. Story woven from fungi, faith, and the ever-elusive search for truth. And as your eyes grow heavy, you realize the Vikings' law wasn't just about verdicts. It was about listening to the earth, to the spirits, and to each other. Morning comes gently, with the mist rolling over the fjord like a soft blanket. You wake to the smell of damp wood and fresh bread baking nearby. The day feels different, somehow lighter, quieter, but tinged with the weight of yesterday's decisions. You find yourself wandering back to the circle where the thing convened, drawn as if by the whispers of the stones themselves. The moss feels cool beneath your boots, the air rich with the scent of pine and salt. Here, in this place, law and legend entwine as you walk. An elder approaches a woman named Freitas, known for her sharp mind and gentler tongue. She greets you with a nod and invites you to sit by the fire. You've been through much, she says softly. Tell me, what do you make of it all? You consider it strange. The way truth is sought here through visions, through words, through shared stories. It's nothing like the courts I imagined. She smiles, eyes crinkling. Our ancestors believed the world was alive, that spirits and gods moved through every stone and tree. Truth wasn't just a fact, it was a feeling, a vision, a balance. She pulls out a small, worn pouch. This holds a few dry fly agaric caps. Not many dare use them now, but the old ways live on, if quietly. You hold the pouch, its weight surprising, a reminder that even in this modern age, ancient roots persist. Freitas tells you of other rituals tied to the mushrooms, the sacred hunts, the feasts where visions guided decisions on planting or war, of nights when the northern lights danced in harmony with the mind's journeys. Historians still argue about the exact role of these practices. Were they widespread or limited, symbolic or literal? Either way, they shaped a culture that treasured both the seen and unseen. You listen, letting her words settle like a slow, soothing tide as the fire crackles. You feel a kinship with the Vikings, not just as fierce warriors or traders, but as seekers. Seekers of meaning, of order, of connection. The mushroom trials, the trance visions, they weren't just court procedures. They were stories told in the language of dreams, a way to navigate a world both harsh and wondrous. You think back to your own experience, the haze, the visions of barley and shadows, the weight of truth shifting like the tide. Freitas stands, preparing to leave. May your path be clear and your heart steady. You watch her disappear into the mist, feeling the quiet power of the place settle around you. In this moment, the line between past and present blurs, and you find comfort in a slow, gentle pulse of history. The story isn't over. It lives, ending the stones, ending the songs, and the mushrooms that once whispered truth in the Viking halls. The morning mist still lingers as you prepare to leave the village, your thoughts swirling like the fog. But before you go, it's one last story the law speaker insists you hear, an old tale about the origins of the mushroom truth rituals, told not in dry law books, but in whispers passed down through generations. He tells you about a time, long before your trial, when a young Viking warrior named Hakon faced a dilemma, accused of stealing cattle, but with no witnesses. His fate rested on the words of a vulva named Sigrid. Sigrid was renowned not just for her visions, but for her compassion. When she administered the mushroom for Hakon's trial, she did so with care, warning him of the journey his mind would take. Hakon's vision was vivid. He saw a storm-tossed ship, waves crashing over the bow, and a mysterious figure guiding it through treacherous waters. When he came back, Sigrid interpreted this as a metaphor. The ship was his honor, the storm his accusers, and to guide his own conscience, leading him through the trial. Historians still debate whether such visions were personal revelations or cleverly crafted tales designed to ease tension and encourage confession. But one thing is certain: these narratives helped the community navigate the gray areas of guilt and innocence. You realize that these rituals were not just about uncovering facts, but about storytelling using symbolism to communicate complex human emotions and social bonds. As you listen, you imagine Hakon, eyes closed, journeying through the storm, his fate hanging on the unseen threads of spirit and story. The law speaker's voice softens. In the end, the trial was not just a verdict, but a shared understanding. You nod, feeling the weight of that wisdom, packing your belongings. You prepare to step back into the world beyond the village, carrying with you the echoes of ancient truths whispered through mushrooms, visions, and the timeless quest for justice. You find yourself on the narrow path leading away from the village, the scent of pine and damp earth filling your lungs. The early sun filters through the branches, casting mottled light onto the ground. Each step feels heavier than the last, as if the stories and visions are settling deep inside you, weaving into the fabric of your being as you walk. Your thoughts drift back to the curious role of the vulva. More than just a seeress or a mushroom guide, she was a keeper of social order and anchor in the swirling seas of human emotion and conflict. She navigated not only the mysteries of the spirit world, but also the delicate balance of community trust. You recall the stories of other Sirius's women, like Gudred, who traveled across icy seas carrying wisdom and prophecy, or Irsa, whose counsel swayed kings and chieftains alike. Their powers extended beyond magic. They held influence through storytelling, mediation, and sometimes subtle political maneuvering. Historians still debate the gender dynamics of seer. While it was often associated with women, some men practiced it, or they risked ridicule for crossing into realms deemed unmanly. This tension speaks to broader cultural values and the ways that magic and gender intersected in Viking society. You find the idea strangely comforting that even in a harsh, battle-scarred world, there was space for nuance, for voices that defied easy categorization. Your feet crunch on frost-hardened leaves as you think about the mushrooms, again their dual nature as both gift and danger. The fly, a Garrick's bright red cap, like a beacon in the forest, promises insight but demands respect. You wonder about the preparation rituals, the charcoal purges, the rhythmic chants, the slow breathing. How many have fallen victim to carelessness? How many lives shaped by visions or mistakes born of altered minds? A crow caws overhead, and you smile wryly. Even the birds seem to understand the gravity of these ancient rites. As the path winds toward the open fields, you realize that the mushroom trials embody a universal human desire to seek truth beyond the surface, to find clarity in confusion, and to weave meaning from the unknown. You pause, looking back at the distant village nestled among the trees. Its people carrying on traditions both strange and familiar, and you feel a quiet kinship with them, all past and present, human and myth, reason and vision, with the final breath of the crisp morning air. You step forward, the stories and secrets of the Viking world folding gently behind you. The wind picks up as you approach a clearing where wildflowers nod and bees hum lazily. It's peaceful here, a quiet contrast to the vivid rituals and tangled truths you've witnessed. You pause, allowing the soft sounds of nature to fill the space between your thoughts. It's easy to forget, amidst the drama of courts and visions, is that the Viking world was also shaped by everyday life, by the rhythms of farming, fishing, and family. You think about how mushrooms, beyond their mystical use, were part of the natural world the Vikings knew intimately. Some were food, others medicine, and some, like the fly agaric, straddled the line between nourishment and spirit. Historians still debate how often these mushrooms were consumed outside ritual contexts. Were they occasional curiosities, or did they have a regular place in diet or medicine? You imagine a Viking grandmother carefully sorting herbs and fungi, spring remedies and stories to her grandchildren. As twilight fades, the mushroom's hallucinogenic qualities might have inspired more than court visions. Perhaps they colored myths, songs, and dreams, seeping into the culture's very soul. And maybe, just maybe, the boundaries between medicine and magic were fluid, shifting with the seasons and needs of the people. You smile to yourself. The next time you spot a bright red mushroom, you'll remember this moment, the slow, soft unfolding of a story where fungi, faith, and human nature dance together. With a final glance at the swaying trees, you continue down the path, carrying the gentle hum of history in your mind. The path narrows as you enter a dense forest, the canopy above filtering sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. The scent of pine and earth is strong here, grounding you after the tangled web of visions and court rituals. You pause to examine a cluster of bright red mushrooms nestled beneath a fallen log. The fly agaric, unmistakable with its white speckles and vibrant cap, seems almost to glow in the muted light. It's remarkable to think how this humble fungus played such a pivotal role in Viking society, not just as a tool for truth, but as a symbol entwined with their understanding of the unseen world. You recall tales from Norse mythology's stories of the berserkers who entered battle frenzy, possibly influenced by substances like mushrooms or other herbs. These warriors embodied the wild, controllable spirit the Vikings both feared and revered. Historians still argue whether the berserker rage was chemically induced or a form of psychological trance, but the link between altered states and cultural practices is undeniable. The fly agaric itself embodies that duality, dangerous and sacred, intoxicating and insightful. As you walk deeper into the woods, you feel a connection to the ancient past, sensing the layers of stories embedded in this landscape. You imagine the Vava gathering herbs here, performing rituals beneath these very trees, her chants blending with the rustle of leaves in the quiet. You recognize that the mushroom trials were more than court proceedings. They were a bridge between worlds, a way for Vikings to touch the divine and navigate the complexities of human nature. You take a deep breath, the cool forest air filling your lungs, and feel a calm certainty settle over you. The journey through Viking truth, vision, and mushroom lore continues, but for now, you carry these stories gently, like seeds waiting to grow. You emerge from the forest into a sunlit meadow, the grass soft beneath your feet and wildflowers swaying in the breeze. The quiet hum of insects and distant bird calls create a gentle soundtrack to your wandering thoughts. It strikes you how the Viking relationship with nature was deeply intertwined with their rituals in daily lives. The sacred mushroom was just one thread in a vast tapestry of beliefs, customs, and practices connecting people to the land and to each other. You recall stories of how Vikings observed the cycles of the moon, the migration of birds, and the blooming of particular plants to guide their decisions from planting crops to going to sea. Mushrooms, their mysterious and sudden appearances, must have seemed like gifts or messages from the earth itself. Historians still debate whether the use of fly agaric was a carefully guarded secret or a more common practice shared among communities. Regardless, its presence and ritual offered a unique way to explore consciousness and justice, blurring the line between the natural and supernatural. You think back to the trial, you witness the shifting visions, the interplay of doubt and revelation, the weight of community judgment. It's a reminder that human nature, no matter the era, grapples with uncertainty, trust, and the search for truth. The Vikings' embrace of mushrooms as tools for insight reflects a willingness to engage with the unknown, to let go of certainty in favor of deeper understanding. As you sit among the flowers, the sun warming your skin, you feel a serene connection to those ancient journeys, both physical and spiritual, that continue to echo through time. The story lingers, soft and persistent, inviting you to rest in its gentle unfolding. You follow a narrow stream as it winds lazily through the valley, its clear water reflecting the pale blue sky above. The gentle babble of the current provides a soothing soundtrack, inviting your mind to drift. It's hard to believe that just days ago, you were wrapped in a thick atmosphere of the Viking thing filled with chanting, visions, and the intoxicating mystery of mushrooms. Now, surrounded by nature's calm, you feel the contrast keenly. The trials, the trance, the whispered secret sauce seem both distant and immediate. Like a dream you're slowly waking from. You remember the Viviva's words, "The mushroom does not lie. The spirit stirs clean." And yet, you also recall the debates among scholars, the uncertainties about how much truth these visions truly revealed. The Viking world thrived in that tension between mystery and reason, myth and law. Their justice was not simply black and white, but a spectrum painted with dreams and whispers. You pause to dip your fingers into the cool stream, watching the ripples spread outward, each one like a ripple of truth in the vast lake of human experience. Historians still argue whether such rituals were merely symbolic performances or genuine attempts to commune with higher forces. Either way, they reveal a culture deeply invested in exploring the boundaries of perception. As you stand, sun beginning to dip lower, you feel a profound respect for these ancient peoples. Their world was rugged and raw, yet touched by moments of delicate grace. The mushroom trials were more than legal curiosities. They were portals to understanding human nature, unity, and the eternal search for meaning. With a final glance at the sparkling water, you set off down the path, carrying the echoes of those visions gently in your heart. The evening air cools as you reach the edge of a quiet village, smoke curling softly from chimneys, the scent of roasting meat mingling with the crisp breeze. Lanterns flicker to life, casting warm pools of light onto cobblestone paths. The days-long journey feels like a gentle lullaby, each step softer than the last, reflecting on the stories you've walked through. You're struck by the deep humanity woven into Viking customs. Their trials, with mushrooms as silent witnesses, weren't just about guilt or innocence. They were about connection. Connection to the land, to the divine, Akina, and to each other. You think of the lost speaker's measured voice, the Viviva's steady gaze, Kina, Thorvald's reluctant confession, and the community's careful balance of myth and reason. All of it comes together in a tapestry of trust, storytelling, and hope. Historians still debate the extent to which these rituals influenced Viking society, but perhaps the true legacy lies in their willingness to seek truth beyond the obvious, to embrace mystery with gentle courage. As night deepens, you feel your eyelids growing heavy, the soft crackle of a nearby fire, lulling you toward rest. The stories of visions and mushrooms, of trance and judgment, fold into the quiet rhythm of the night. Now, as you prepare to drift into sleep, imagine the moss-covered stones, the whispered chants, the fleeting glimpses of truth revealed beneath. Red-capped mushrooms. Let these images soften and fade like a gentle tide, leaving you calm and steady. May your dreams be filled with the slow unfolding of stories, the hum of ancient forests, and the warm glow of shared human experience. Rest. Well,